This to the right. Now watch this turn. Indicator left, down the slope. What a shot. What a shot. Is it? Oh, would you believe that? Rory McIlroy. What a round of golf. It's one outside the Augusta course record. Than I anticipated. Oh man, what a shot! I'd say that's pretty good. Whoa!
Good evening, golf fans. Welcome back to the Putting for Dough show. We are here to talk all things golf DFS this evening. It's been a little while since you saw us. The last show we did was the RBC Heritage. We skipped the Pers event last week. We'll come to how we did in the RBC and the Pers event, which I didn't really play much of in a moment, but we wouldn't be anywhere without our introductions. So for anyone who's new to the show this evening, I'm joined by Mr. SMRF himself, Mark Ferguson, and the slightly unwell but on the path to recovery, Mr. Jack Humphrey. Fellas, it's been 2 weeks. How are we doing? Are we nice and refreshed? Other than you, Jack.
I'm all
Jack's not as usual. Yeah, you're not usual vivacious self, Jack. You know, cheerful self. So this should be a bit of a show.
I'm never cheerful. Let's be honest.
Do you know what? I opened Twitter before, and without any context whatsoever, I just saw a tweet from Jack saying "idiots," and I was just like happy.
And you're thinking, which ones, Nick? Aren't you? Which ones is he referring to?
Which crowd is the target?
Yeah.
99% of people. That's what I'm referring to. So.
Oh well, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks since we've shown our faces. We'll start with the RBC Heritage. I know I had a pretty good RBC Heritage. I think I took the Listener League down, and no, I didn't. I think I finished second in the end. But I think I took down the Pod League, and then Jack, you bounced back and took it down last week in the Pers.
Yeah.
How have we done over the last couple of weeks? I didn't really play much last week, but I did pretty well at the RBC Heritage. Quite happy with that.
My RBC Heritage was sort of a bit middle of the road. I only had like a 5 or 6 lineup that got through, and it just sort of cashed everything. So just sort of middle of the road there. Wasn't great. I think to be honest, it was probably a slight loss, like about $20 loss on the week. Surprisingly, with a 5 or 6, I looked at the leaderboard. I was getting beat by some 4 or 6s as well. So I was a bit surprised, but that was quite a high scoring event, the RBC Heritage in the end. So glad Jordan Spieth didn't win it. That not because I do have a dislike to Jordan Spieth, just because of the American crowd were winding me up towards the end there, doing their stupid USA chant and all that mashed potato crap that they shout out. It just drives me insane, all of that stuff. I'm just hello to our American listeners, but yeah, that sort of stuff just like drives me insane. And I'm glad Matt Fitzpatrick come through and won that. He hit a peach of a shot on that 18th hole in the playoff. Absolute beautiful shot. So yeah, I'm glad he won there. But the Pairs event, back to normal. I had a good week there, a little bit of profit. I like you, Nick, I went very, very light. I think I ended up playing 4 tournaments on that. 2 GPPs, 2 cash, and they all cashed. And they all cashed. So there was a little bit of profit to be had there. I think it was worked out about $35 worth of profit. Nothing major, nothing to jump up and down about, but it's profit and we take it. And I went light purposely. This is a lot of luck and randomness in those sort of pair events, and that's the reason why I went light. I will probably go a little bit lighter this week as well, just due to the field and due to what's coming next week at the Wells Fargo. And one more thing, yet again, shout out to the newsletter. Another 3 for free last week on my cause. So if you're not signed up to it, you really are missing out on free money.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, DraftKings were messaging you the other day, Mark, saying that there's been some unusual activity on your account because you deposited for the first time since about 1994. So you've obviously not been doing too well the past couple of weeks.
That makes it sound like I'm back to even, but you know full well I'm not. I did tell you, give you the profit and loss on the withdrawals and stuff. But yeah, it was a bit of a funny thing. I had to look at the help screens and all of that, to deposit some money. I think I've been even over the last 2 weeks until Jack just said about Matt Fitzpatrick coming back. I couldn't even remember the heritage. I'm that old now. I can remember it. So last week I just literally put a basic model into Brit Run Good and a generic model because it's very hard to do a proper model for last week's pairs event. And I made 20 lineups and I literally broke even on those. I chose the wrong one out of the 20 for the pod league because I could have chosen any one. I was going to Centre Park, so I didn't really put too much fuss or attention into it. I think I had about a 40% chance of winning it if I'd chosen a different lineup or something, but there you go.
Very good, very good. Yeah, RBC Heritage, I think, like I said, I came second in the Listener League, and double ups were key. Once again, they just keep returning every week. Really just loving the double ups. And on the Matt Fitzpatrick, American fans, we saw it in full swing that they were giving him jip last year at the US Open when he won there. But I just hope and pray it gets reciprocated in the Ryder Cup at the end of the year. So please don't let us down, Italy.
It's certainly where I'm going.
Any fans that are travelling over there as well. Let's hope the Naples lot don't intrude. Well, we'll move on then to this week's event. Before we do, for anyone that's missed on the socials, we've got some exciting news. So, Jack, I don't know if you want to share this with the listeners because it's all you're doing. But we have a nice guest lined up.
We do. We thought we'd save him. We done a little teaser, didn't we? 2 weeks ago at the RBC Heritage Show. So we've got Mr. Kurt Jones, aka @Kurt&Call on the Twitter, coming on for the PGA Championship. We thought we'd save him for the next major. He kind of wanted to come off the Heritage Show, and I was like, "Oh, can we just schedule it for the major? I'd rather have you on for there. It's a bigger thing." And he was like, "Yeah, that's cool." Kurt is part of Run Pure Sports, who I have a subscription to. Helped me take down that league, that Euro League, the other week, which you saw my little
live on air,
on the show. He also knows a hell of a lot about golf, especially golf betting. Actually, he's a very good golf bettor. So very excited to have him on and listen to his insight. Really, he was quite surprised. I've had a few back and forth DMs with him. He's quite surprised how I play. And I was actually taken back a little bit to how he plays. So I'm looking forward to him sharing the way he plays and things like that. We're going to get a lot of strategy from him, and a lot of insight that'll be great for all of our listeners. So yeah, that'd be for the PGA Championship. I can't wait.
Yeah. And for anyone who isn't learned in this subject, Run Pure Sports, if you ever enter a contest on DraftKings, you only need to look at the leaderboard, and I guarantee you will see someone on there with RPS on the little picture icon in red writing, and that is Run Pure Sports. It's one of the biggest DFS sites out there in terms of like providing content, and it's subscription based as well. So a lot of the stuff that they do, it's like the value of that content isn't something that's just given away. It's quality stuff. So we're quite fortunate to have him on there, and what better event to have him on than the PGA as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that.
Just before we do move on, I love their playbooks over at Run Pure Sport. They've not told us to give a shout out to them, but I've been a member of a lot of DFS sites over the years. I find them the best just for the way I play. I enjoy their playbooks, but again, it's not for everyone. The subscription is expensive monthly. I think it's about £80 a month. It's not cheap for anyone, for everyone to do it. But I find it quite worthwhile, and I've been very profitable using them. So, like Nick says, if you look at any DFS leaderboard, their avatar, Run Pure, is littered all over the top 10 of leaderboards all the time.
Yeah. So looking forward to that, and that's a few weeks away. We've got a couple of events to cover off before then. We've got the Mexico Championship, followed by the Wells Fargo, followed by the AT&T Byron Nelson, and then we've got the PGA Championship. So a few weeks away just yet. But let's move on to this week's event then. So we're over to Mexico for the Mexico Open. Jack, give us a course preview before we get into the nitty-gritty of what golfers are in the field this week.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to butcher the course name here, as I normally do with things like this. So it's the Vedanta Vallarta in Vallarta, Mexico. It's a Greg Norman design. It's par 71, 7,456 yards long. There's 6 lakes on this complex. There's the water from them lakes actually comes into play on 11 of the holes here. It's paspalum everywhere, the fairways, the rough, and the greens. The greens are large in size. They're quite slow, actually. They're quite slow greens, these ones. This golf course is very long, so if you're an actual member of this golf course or a member of the public, you would play it as a par 73. The pros are going to play it as a par 71. That tells you how long that this golf course is going to be. This week, a lot of the par 5s have been converted into par 4s for the Tour pros. Like many Greg Norman designed golf courses, the closing hole is a par 5. It's reachable for most of the guys in this field who are the bigger hitters of the field, so to speak. That's a key stat. We'll get onto the stats in a bit, but it's not an easy hole really to just go and try and bomb it down there. You've got a forest on the left to it. You've got a large fairway bunker to the right, so you have to be pretty accurate with your drive on that one. But it does provide fireworks down the finish there, down the stretch. Typical Greg Norman design golf courses. There is a ton of bunkers, all guarding the greens. That's a sort of Greg Norman trait. He loves bunkers around the greens. They're very deep bunkers, type of bunkers that you'd see around, especially around the greens, type of bunkers that you'd see at some Open Championships like in the past. Water's in play on half the holes, as I mentioned, and that is even more present if the wind gets up around here. If you're playing showdown, I kind of suggest this to people as it is, but stack the AM waves all the time. The wind in this part of the world tends to, I've heard it a lot over the last few days on podcasts. The wind in this part of the world tends to get up around 2 p.m. So if you're playing showdown, I'd be stacking the morning wave. I think that's something you should be doing anyway, just softer conditions and things like that. Overall, it's not, despite the length, it's not particularly tough, this golf course. There's lots of wide open fairways and things like that, and there's a few reachable par 4s on off the tee. So the score should be low again this week, but it's a golf course that has to be respected. There are dangers out there if you're a bit wayward and things like that. Winning score, I would say, will be between 17 under to 20 under, depending on the weather. Your cut, I reckon you're going to be looking at about 1 under, 2 under.
Nice. Course key stats for you, Mark, this week?
A little bit of everything, generally. We haven't got much history of this from this course, only 1 year of it, so we haven't got any sort of model for that. Driving distance is obviously more important than would be, but other than that, it's just pretty much a generic model for me this week. Nothing particularly unusual or special.
Jack?
Yeah, so I'm taking a look at driving distance, strokes gained on approach, the proximity buckets of 175 to 200 and 200 plus, sand save, strokes gained putting on slow greens, par 5 scoring. That's where you're going to make your way this week. Birdies are better again. As I said, it should be a bit of a birdie fest. And then some comp courses. Obviously, the host this course here. Corrales is a good comp course for this. It's long as well. A good sort of resort course there. And Kapalua, where they play the Tournament of Champions, like I mentioned, there's a few wide open fairways and things like that, large greens, and that's what all comes into play here. That's it for me this week.
Yeah, similar stuff to me, to be fair. A lot of what approach is high on the agenda every week, but the driving distance, I think some of the bigger hitters will find successes here this week. Their approach to green will be your shorter clubs. There'll be some players that are just taking like a wedge or short iron in, which will benefit some of the golfers there. I think with the greens, obviously a little bit slower than what we've seen in previous events as well. So if you are factoring that in on a model, just make sure that you're looking at either equivalent greens, like you said, Jack Paspalum, or you're looking at some of the slower stats when it comes to greens as well. I guess we'll get into the players then. It's not a great field this week, bar the top 2 players, which won't come as any surprise, really, who the most expensive is. It is the world number 1, Jon Rahm, and then we've got Tony Finau, massive 1,300 less, which you don't really see very often, even when Rahm is in the field. Is it a straightforward just play Jon Rahm this week for you, Mark? Or is it a fade? Are you going to Tony Finau? Are you just completely ignoring these top 2 guys altogether?
It's very hard. I'm finding it very hard to make lineups I like with Jon Rahm in it. So I do have that. There's I think as we said before we came on air, cash wise you can make a case for playing both, either of Jon Rahm or Tony Finau. But for me, I'm generally fading them. I know that may well work against me, but equally, looking at the projections and stuff, just imagine they just don't do as well as. I mean, don't forget, Jon Rahm at 12, if he's, say, 10th or 8th or something, he's not return value, I don't think. And that's like 50% of the field then, which are kind of out from winning a tournament or GPP. So I think this is a great game theory week in that respect. Really do. Really do. So, yeah, for me, I'll be... I think most of my lineups will start in the 9Ks.
Yeah, I think we've said this previously when we've had fields a little bit like this, but normally we wouldn't necessarily encourage fading someone like Jon Rahm, but because of the strength of field here, you can get different with your lineup, and you're going to see a lot more dispersion when it comes to ownership as well across the board. Obviously, Jon Rahm is going to be very, very highly owned as it stands. I think he's projected to be at least 50% owned, which isn't a surprise, but I guess you sacrifice elsewhere in your lineups. And given that this isn't a strong field, a good way of getting around it, I guess, is that if you're fading him completely, then like you said, Mark, you can attack some of the 9s, the 8s, build a lineup that way, you've got a bit more of a balance, maybe a few more sure things in your lineup as well. Jack, is it the same story for you?
Sorry, just want to quickly say something on that point. So, for example, Tony Finau is second most expensive player, and he's been in the top 20 in 5 out of his last 8, but he's only been top 10 once. So if he's, between 10th and 20th, he has not returned value, and it's going to be hard to win a tournament with him in there. So just because they're the two class acts doesn't mean with their pricing and the way the pricing structure is this week that they're going to necessarily return value. Sorry, that was a point I wanted to make quickly about Tony Finau.
Absolutely fair. How are you approaching this week, Jack?
Kind of what I said to you guys before we come on there. No surprise, John Rahm is the number 1 player in my model. I think he'd probably be number 1 player in all of our models, to be honest. But I will play him in cash. I know Mark said he can build a team that he likes. I've just chucked in a free core one of mine, and I think I can build a team that I'd like. So yeah, I'll play John Rahm in cash. I do think that ownership will come down slightly and come closer to Tony Finau. I think it'll be a case where they sort of even each other out again at the top there. This year for golf, DFS, it's just been weird. These top guys in each event have just produced and come up with the goods each time. Obviously, going back to Mark's point on Finau there, I think that's why Rahm is the better player. I would just rather pay up and get to John Rahm over Tony Finau. There's obviously a bit of a worry with Rahm that there could be a bit of a burnout coming, and we might have seen that after the API where he finished quite low down in the end. He missed the cut of the players because he withdrew. Then he didn't get out of his group at the match play, but I don't care about the match play. The 15th at the Heritage was quite good to see, really, coming off the back of the Masters win. That's hard to do. He had a bad first day at the Heritage, from what I remember, but then you come back and his ball striking at the Heritage was elite. I know that. I looked into that. So yeah, I think I play John Rahm in cash. I like Mark says, I'm probably not going to start with either of these two in GPP lineups. John Rahm won this event last year, and he wasn't in the optimal lineup. So I can't remember what price he was last year. I'm presuming he was a little bit cheaper than the 12,000 he is now. But I know odds-wise, looking at the betting odds, he was pretty much the same. He was 4-1 last year to win this event, and he's 3-1 to win it this year. So he's pretty much the same odds-wise. So the salary on DK may have been a bit less, but he wasn't in the optimal last year. I just think I'll play him in cash, and then that'll be it for me. I'll get off of him in GPPs, and I just won't play Tony Finau. Tony Finau ranks 3rd in my model. He's not even the 2nd best player in my model, but I know Tony Finau's not really someone I ever play anyway. So I'm certainly not going to start here.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm going to take the approach to just fade both guys and just see how it goes this week. Just get a little bit different, a bit further down. I'd rather just have some of these guys in the next kind of range and just take the risk this week. I think, like you said, Mark, if you're going to own John Rahm or Finau this week, they pretty much have to win, or at least be kind of top 5, which obviously the capability of that is there. The probability of it, maybe, but you never know. Could just be one of them weeks. We've seen that from Finau more than often. Though his golf this year has been really good, we're seeing it less from John Rahm. But yeah, I'm happy to fade both and just see what we can find a little bit further down. Which brings us on nicely, I guess, to the 9s, where we find some of the bigger hitters in the field, reflected in the price as well. So we've got Windy Wyndham at 9,700, so he tops this range. We've got Gary Woodland at 9.6. Nikolai Højgaard, who I had no idea how long he was off the tee till I looked at the stats. And he can slide straight in my lineup for that reason. Maverick McNeely, Patrick Rogers, Taylor Pendrith, Jack's favourite golfer of all time, Benny Ann, and Alex Noren rounds us off in the 9. So I'll come to you first on this range, Jack. Is it back to Benny Ann? It must be.
Yeah, it probably is. I actually really like the 9K range. To be honest.
He's trying to be casual about it, Nick, as well. It's like he's trying to be casual. Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no comment. But yeah.
I don't know what the problem is with Benny Ann. Like, everyone gets on my case with it. It's been. I tell you what, the thing is with Benny Ann, I think what people forget is he used to be very, very inconsistent. Like he used to be like Siwoo Kim, he'd make a cut, miss a cut, make a cut. But when he misses a cut, he misses one horribly. Like it's like 10 over par. But this year, he's been pretty consistent. Making 5 of his last 6 cuts. The only one he missed there was the API. He comes 6th at the Valero Texas Open. He was 13th last week in that pairs event at the Zurich Classic.
Didn't he withdraw from the API?
He may, yes, he did. I think you're correct. Yes, I think you are correct. So he didn't technically miss a cut there. So yeah, I will go back to Benny Ann. He's an absolute bomber off the tee. I'm just going to put it into driving distance to see where he ranks. He's above John Rahm on distance off the tee, so that's not a bad thing. Jesus Christ, who is that? It's brought up there. He's 8th, sorry. So he's 8th in this field on driving distance. I like him. I will definitely have some Benny Ann this week again. This is a great range. Wyndham Clark ranks number 2 in my model this week. Again, bomber off the tee, hits it far. Look at these recent events. Zurich, he was 3rd last week. He was 29th at the Heritage. I like the 6th at Corrales. I've used that as a comp course for here. 5th at the Valspar, 27th at the Players, and then 34th at the API. He's just been fantastic, Wyndham Clark, this year. We know what he's like when if the wind gets up as well. So that's not an issue for Wyndham Clark. He's all-round game now has come together as well. Like strokes gain approach, he's doing great there. He's green on my model. I'm certainly going to get to him. I love Nikolai Højgaard. He's number 1 in this field in driving distance. He's just been one of my core plays recently. I've just been playing him every single week. Comes 2nd at Corrales, which we're using as a comp course. Never played here, but not many people have really. We've only seen one year at this event, so you can't really use a lot of course history at this event. But this range is just stacked. Yeah, Benny Ann, Højgaard, Wyndham Clark. I like Gary Woodland for GPP plays. He's a bit of a boom or bust player. He could really kill you, Gary Woodland, at times. But again, bombs it off the tee. I like Patrick Rogers as well. It's a great range. I think you can really build some nice lineups in this range.
Yeah, completely agree. Mark, mop it up for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to the reason I knew that Benny Ann withdrawing is because, I don't want to give away too much here, but he's actually in my cut maker call this week. So when so that's the only reason I know so much about him this week. I'm like you guys. I like Nikolai Højgaard. I find the Gary Woodland thing quite interesting because statistically he looks very good, and he's projected to probably be 2nd or 3rd lowest owned in this range. So I find that interesting. I would love to be able to build decent lineup with 3 of these guys in there. I really would, because I just think that's the way to make your lineups different. I'm actually tempted to just based on pure ownership and because of the nature of this event, I'm also tempted to add Wyndham Clark to my fade list. Not because he doesn't rank well, he's like 4th in my model, but just based on ownership. But that might be sort of creating too much leverage. I don't know. Without Ramafi now, maybe you've got enough. But yeah, nothing I can add that Jack hasn't already said.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I don't. I'm with you, Jack. I do like the Benny Am play this week. I think Højgaard and Clark are my favourites in this range, but I do like Woodland as well. And they're all tightly packed there at the top, and it's probably going to come down to a coin toss on who I decide to go with, because there's pros and cons for all three, I guess.
If you're playing 20 lineups, I think you just rotate, 2 or 3, whatever it is, out of those every combo.
Yeah, kind of cover them all in sort of 30 to 40% of your lineups, but just a different combination. Yeah, that's one way of approaching it. I don't play a massive amount of different lineups though, because it drives me insane when I hit on the right golfers but the wrong lines. So I approach it a bit more like Jack does, with a small core and the same kind of lineup in multiple contests. So it is going to have to come down to the coin toss. At the moment, Nikolai Højgaard's definitely in there.
Well, I just, with my model, in regards to that, I mean, Højgaard's not going to pop in it because it's over the last 32 rounds, but Wyndham Clark is number 2. Just in this range, Wyndham Clark's number 2, Patrick Rogers is number 4, and Gary Woodland's number 5.
They're all up there.
Yep.
Tight at the top. Let's have a look at the 8K range then. Starting us off with Two Glove, Aaron Rai, who you said you are not playing this week, Jack, categorically before the show. Bo Hostler, Andrew Putnam, Ben Martin, Emiliano Grillo, Alex Smalley, Brandon Wu, Garrick Higo, S.H. Kim. Nearly said Siwoo Kim, then it is not Siwoo Kim. Stephen Jager, Mark Hubbard, Matt Wallace, MJ Dafu, and Robbie Shelton rounds us off in the 8K range. Could have been a couple of names murdered in there, but we digress. Mark, I'll come to you first for this range.
There's a noticeable difference in driving distances generally have dropped in this range.
Yes.
Definitely.
I've got a funny feeling me and Mark are going to like the same player.
Do you think? Okay, well, let me tell you my favourite player in this range. He might be my favourite player, even though his driving distance isn't very good. Ben Martin.
I hate this when we agree on stuff.
Thing is, Jack, when I was researching today, I looked at Ben Martin. I just knew you were going to like him as well. It was just so blatant. I mean, he's been in the newsletter almost every week for like 2 months. Just fantastic stats across the board. What I really like is he gains more than 2 strokes on the field in 41% of his last 32 rounds, which is fantastic. Shows a lot of upside as well. The only knock on him potentially is the driving distance, but he seems to be, dealing with that or in other ways. But yeah, absolutely fantastic statistically. At 8.6, I don't see a massive difference. I mean, I think he's better than a lot of players who are like 1K above him. So yeah, I think it's my favourite.
I had a feeling that you were going to give me a Ben Martin shout as well. But to be honest, completely agree. Jack?
It's the same. My favourite, to be honest, I don't actually like a lot in this range. I like Ben Martin for all the reasons Mark has mentioned. Did miss the cut at the pairs event last year, but that may not have been him. That may have been his partner's fault. I don't even know who he was paired with last week, but I'm not worried about a miscut there. Most definitely not. I'm a slut, as I've mentioned before, and I will play Grillo, but that is ultimate pain. If you want to follow me on that, you can do that. He was very good at the Heritage. He was 7th there. I played him at the Heritage, and I quite enjoyed my experience with Grillo for a change. Look, you know what you're going to get with this guy. He's pretty good across the board. The one stat where he's absolutely awful is putting, and I mean he's awful. Like, he will give every shot back with his putter that he gains everywhere else. he was 30, he's played this course before. He was 33rd here last year, which is fine. So yeah, I'm a bit of a slut, and I'm quite happy to play Grillo. I understand why people would be concerned with that pick. I've bet Stephen Yeager, but I'm a little bit worried about him. He was in good form up to the Valspar, sorry, and then he withdrew from a few events. So I'm wondering if he's carrying a little bit of an injury, and then he missed the cut. He come back at the RBC Heritage, and he missed the cut there. So I don't know if I can play him. He finished 15th here last year. He's a bomber off the tee as well, Jaeger. Losing strokes, putting at the minute. So I'm a little bit worried with him. Matt Wallace is popping in my model. He ranks where is he in my model? Matt Wallace ranks number 10 in my model, but that's probably due to his win at Corrales that's coming into play there. Since the win at Corrales, he's been pretty disappointing. He's missed 2 cuts straight. Again, he missed the cut at the pairs event last week. I don't know who he was paired with, but he did miss the cut at the Heritage. He also missed the cut here last year, so that may be a bit of a worry. But hits quite far off the tee. Obviously, he likes these longer tracks with what we saw at the Heritage. But Matt Wallace sort of does stuff like this. He'll get his win, and then he'll just go on like a downfall for the rest of the year, so to speak. So I don't know if I can go back to him there. Robbie Shelton is also popping in my model, but again, has been kind of disappointing recently. He missed the cut last week. Again, I really am not worried about the missed cut there. But it's 15th at the Valero Texas Open, which is great to see. Hasn't played this golf course before, but again, he was on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. 13th in my model, Robbie Shelton. So they're the guys that I do like, but Ben Martin's my favourite pick out of this lot. I don't particularly like the 8K range, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan myself either. Matt Wallace, I quite like. I actually don't mind Kim. He's been a quite consistent cut maker on the tour this year. In fact, he's only missed 2 cuts this year on the PGA Tour, and he's played a lot of events as well. So I don't mind Kim, but it's not a range that I really like either. And to be honest, if I'm going to pick a couple of the 9K guys, it's probably the range below this that I would be dipping into more. Ben Martin, can't disagree with that. I think he's the standout in this range. So I'm not going to go over the ground that you guys have covered on that. I think Ben Martin would be a consensus pick in the 8K range. So we'll move on to the 7s. I'm not going to list them all because there's an awful lot of 7s, as there always is. So I'll just come back to you, Jack. Just give me your play in the 7K range. If you're not liking the 8s, there's got to be someone here.
I like Nate Lashley at 7-7. He's number 1 in strokes gained putting on Paspalum greens. Clearly a surface he likes. Loves slow greens as well. He was 11th here last year. 31st at the Heritage on his recent outing, which I'd like to see. He ranked 6th in my model as well this week. So, obviously ranking first in strokes gained putting on Paspalum is going to pop you up a bit. But, he's probably my favourite play in the 7K range. I'll just list off a few other guys that I like. Just I won't go into too much detail on them. I like Pat Kaziri, big driver of the ball. Been playing pretty well recently, actually. He's one of them that's a bit of a boom or a buster, guy. Would miss loads of cuts, but he's actually made 4 cuts on the trot, which I'd like to see. Michael Kim, I'm quite happy to go down to him at 7-3 as well. He's another one I like. Made a few cuts recently as well. Who else we got down there that I like? That's probably it, to be honest. I'm not a massive fan of this range either.
Mark, is there anyone in this range then?
Well, I mean, Jack named my favourite, which is Michael Kim. I do have a bit of a soft spot for Dylan Wu as well. Just as much as consistency as anything there. What I'm curious about though is why is Harry Hall's projected ownership so high? Because I just don't see it. His projected ownership is the highest in his range. by quite some way.
13th at Corrales, maybe that's. I don't know. Well, yeah, it's the only thing I can sort of.
Yeah, I can't work it out either. So it feels like there's lots of names there of players we used to play in DFS.
Yeah,
It's
like Luke
you know,
List.
yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I really struggle with this. I think you're going to be putting your finger in the air when you're picking these players.
Like Mark said there, I don't mind the Dylan Wu shout actually. Yeah, I don't mind the Dylan Wu shout at all. To be honest, that's not too bad. Ches Reevy's another one. I don't mind that. He's getting a lot of steam. I've heard this week, so he might come in quite high owned, but he might be worth a punt in as a cash play. Ches Reevy. That's kind of it. It's really not a great range. I just want, obviously we're going to have to come down into this range, but I just want guys that are going to make the cut down in this range if I'm going to be playing them.
Yeah, I think on the Harry Hall thing, I need to say Harry Hill then, completely different guy, but looks a little bit like him actually. It's like a pair of specs on him. He won't be far off.
Do DraftKings have a picture for him?
That's asking too much. It took 2 years to get a Cameron Young. I don't know whether he's getting a little bit of the treatment that Denny McCarthy got for a little period. Obviously, Denny McCarthy's established himself more now as a player and all-rounder, but his putting, he gains a lot of strokes putting. So I don't know if he's just getting the traction there for that, because that is a stat that stands out, I guess. The rest of his game, not great. Like you said, Jack, maybe the 13th at Corrales, maybe that's bumped it up a little bit. But yeah, I don't really understand that ownership either.
I should mention Cameron Champ, but I am, again, that's like Grillo. I'm a slut, and no one else should do what I do.
Yeah.
There is a method behind my madness, though.
Again, another big hitter, Cameron Champ, if you're going to play him. I don't mind Akshay Bhatia in this range. And I don't mind Eric Cole either. Not a big hitter, but those were two of the names that stood out for me in this range. But yeah, there's not a lot going on. Not a lot that I like.
Just going back to my Cameron Champ one, like, I know people might think I'm messing about. I will play him in GPPs just because I know he can win. The form has been awful, but Cameron Champ has won multiple times on the PGA Tour. I know he can win, but it's like Grillo. If you're gonna play these people, just do not watch them because they will tilt you like anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think then we'll just brush over the 6Ks and below. And then we'll look at building a lineup. So there wasn't much that we liked in the 8s. There wasn't much that we liked in the 7s. There has to be diamond in the rough in the 6s. There has to be.
I've got a funny feeling me and Mark might like the same one down here as well.
Really? Okay, well, you go this time, Jack, then.
Martin Traynor.
Oh, no, I haven't got... No, he hasn't. He's not... let me look it up. He's not actually turned up on my list.
Right, decent driving distance. Ranks about 20th in driving distance in this field. 9th last week at the Pairs event. 22nd at Corrales, which is good to see. It was 11th here last year as well, which is good to see. Got a bit of course history around here. 6'8". I don't think you can go far wrong really down there at that price.
Interesting. No, he does not register for me at all. Who does though down there is Ryan Gerard.
He's the one I was just looking at.
Yeah. Again, he's not a top play. But there's some names down here again, like Satoshi Kadira, who we would have. I think last year we were happily playing him, weren't we? For quite a while. He went through a run, didn't he? Doc Redman, of course, he's always been good. He's always been a DFS darling at various times during his career. Our man Trevor Werbelow.
Trevor Werbelow is back at 6'6".
Yeah,
so
6'6" had a price bump, hasn't he?
Mm.
He doesn't rank very well for my model, but he's made 3 out of his last 4 cuts, hasn't he? So actually, better than that, he's made 7 of his last 8.
Yeah.
Alejandro Tosti.
And he only missed that. He only missed that cut at the pairs event, which again I don't really care about that. It depends who they're paired with, doesn't it? Like they can be paired with some right part timer golfer. I just I don't care about that. Werbelow. I'll probably go back there, Mark. To be honest, he's decent driving distance as well.
Yeah, just his approach play seems to be letting him down, statistically speaking. Everything else is pretty decent.
Yeah, happy. Yeah, I agree. Happy to go back there.
Alejandro Tosti has been playing not too bad on the Corn Ferry Tour. Toasty? I didn't want to call him Toasty. I'm going to stick with Tosti. He's a big hitter as well, looking at the figures.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess he ticks a box there. Ben Taylor in this range as well caught my eye, I guess. Ryan Gerrard was the other one. Mark, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
It could be Werbelow week again, though. Now I've looked at it in a bit more detail.
Yeah, it could just be throwing darts again here. But Werbelow, I like Werbelow down there. There isn't really anything below that, I don't think. No, absolutely nothing. No, not even going to go any lower than that. Werbelow, I think, is my absolute floor that I will go this week. Let's build a lineup, fellas, because I feel like we're getting a lot of I don't like. But we're going to have to put these players into some kind of lineup. So I think what we try is a John Ram build, and then let's try fading these top guys and see where we're at. So I'm going to kick us off with the John Ram build, which is going to take us straight into the 7s.
Stick Nate Lashley in.
Nate Lashley, let's get him in. Nate Lashley was high 6s, was he?
7-7 he was.
7-7. So Nate Lashley goes in. Mark, was it you with the Kim shout?
Well, I think Jack, Michael Kim's good. Do we do a Werbelow here to get some cash, to free up some cash as well?
Yeah, let's throw Werbelow in.
in.
And if you put Michael Kim in as well, because he's only 7-3. Just wondering if we can get up to Ben Mark. We can. No, I'm not sure.
No, we can make our way there.
We can do it, but it's not going to be many good options for this last one. Maybe Dylan Wu or Cole.
Yeah, Kaziri is there.
I like Kazira.
Yeah. So actually, that's not as bad as we've kind of talked ourselves into that one, haven't we?
Yeah, I don't mind that up at all.
Like, if you're willing to play a few of the 7K guys and dip into the 6K range, it's absolutely doable.
Yep.
And we've all agreed that there isn't all that much that we liked in the 8Ks. So I don't mind that. Let's have a look.
Can we try and do 3 of those 9K guys?
Yeah, so let's have a bit of Højgaard, because we all liked Højgaard.
Stick Højgaard in.
We're going to put Ben.
Definitely.
Stick Benny Allen in.
Yeah.
Wendy Clark.
Yeah.
We're back to Werbelow country.
Yeah,
let's Gerrard country and things like
that. Let's get
Werbelow. Martin Trainer in at 6'8".
Yep.
Rather than doing Werbelow again.
Yeah, put Trainer in at 6'8".
That gets you back up to 7'4", and then we could stick in.
You've got Batia around that range.
Cam Champ.
Cam Champ, which
That is boom or bust, Cameron Champ. I mean, I would, but
that takes us kind of back into that 7.8 range.
List country.
No,
Yeah. I guess I wonder if we were to go. Let's just have a look. If we did go were below, it gets us up to 8.3. Was there anyone around that range? There's Wu. There's Wallace, maybe.
It's weird. I feel you're picking the 3 9s there for consistency, almost guarantees, and then you've got too much.
You have to sacrifice,
you've got too much.
Yeah, I think you just stick Werbelow in and then just pick 2 guys in the 7s. Then maybe we all like Michael Kim, so just go back to Michael Kim, get rid of Champ, stick Werbelow in, and that takes you back up to 7-8 if you put Michael Kim in. And then
you've got rid of Trainer then, yeah.
Oh, so you've gone back Werbelow.
Yeah, I've got Højgaard and Wyndham Clark, Werbelow, Michael Kim, and then I'm back up to 7-8, and then.
You've gone past him, Nicky 6-6. That's it.
Then I would just stick in. Well, I'd stick Nate Lashley in because I think he's a bit more safer than the other guys around it. But that's just me. But you could have anyone there. You could have Kaziri, Bramley if you wanted, Reevy.
Yeah, Cole's there as well. Dylan Wu's there. I'll throw Lashley in, but yeah, you could pick any of them guys in that range. I think if I was putting this lineup together, like you just said, Mark, you kind of building it out like that for consistency. I don't think I'd want to necessarily go for 2 of the 6K guys because then I feel like I'm actually sacrificing in the lineup.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's hard to find 6 players you're really comfortable with.
Yeah. Now that we've built that, I feel like I'm preferring the first lineup than the second, which has kind of changed my mind on as I've gone through the show. But
me too. There's saying we're just fading John Ryan because he's too expensive and stuff. And now it doesn't look like it makes much of a difference. That's the thing.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It seems like you're still picking from the same kind of pool of players in the end.
And 3 of them still.
Yeah. Fellas, where can the listeners find you? Nowhere.
On the Twitter @_SMRF.
Jack?
On the Bird app @Jack Humphrey DFS. You can also find our newsletter that'll be out tomorrow. My core, Mark's Cup Makers in there, course preview, weather, tee times, the lot. It'll all be in there. And don't forget to join us for our PGA Championship show with Kurt Jones from Run Pure Sports in a few weeks' time because it's going to be epic.
And you can find me on Elon Musk's site @NickOfWigan as well. And I guess we will we'll see you next Tuesday, hopefully with a better field than what we've had to speak through this week. Catch you then.
Laters.